Hi everyone, welcome back to Visually Hidden Selects. I'm Peter O'Brien, and today I would like to talk to you about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind from 2004, directed by Michel Gondry and starring Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet, Kirsten Dunst, Mark Ruffalo, Tom Wilkinson, and Elijah Wood. The title derives from a poem by Alexander Pope, which is quoted in the film by Kirsten Dunst's character, and plays metaphorically into its themes. This film follows the story of a couple who meet, fall in love, fall out of love, and break up. But not necessarily in that order, because in this film, there is a company that can erase the unwanted memories from your mind. And when Kate Winslet's character has that procedure done off-screen, Jim Carrey's character is left with the choice of either suffering through the breakup or literally making his problems go away overnight. But he finds that either choice is not without its problems. This film is really an emotional roller coaster of non-linear echoes that keep you engaged throughout. And it starts off small and intimate. It really just has this very independent film vibe. A lot of shots are handheld, and it's just very, very quaint. But the story very quickly is infused with spontaneity that gives it this energy, which, being written by Charlie Kaufman, is no great surprise. He had previously been nominated for Best Original Screenplay for Being John Malkovich and Adaptation, and he wound up winning his only Oscar for this script. Interestingly enough, he shared it with Michel Gondry and Pierre Bismuth, who came up with the idea and pitched it to Gondry, who then brought Charlie Kaufman in to write the screenplay. He does have the sole screenplay credit, but on the story, it is shared between the three. But in between Being John Malkovich and Adaptation, Charlie Kaufman had written another script for a film called Human Nature, which was Michel Gondry's first feature film as a director. He had worked directing music videos for a long time. Most of his career up to that point. He had also done short films here and there, and really that background in music videos was such an asset to this particular film given the nature of its story. He was able to bring a very visually striking edge to this small independent film, and a big part of it came from the use of practical effects. For the most part, there really isn't a whole lot of CGI or digital manipulation in this film. There is a little bit, but primarily they did it all in camera, and they used forced perspective, and they used little secret trap doors in the sets to make characters move from one place to another behind the camera, so it was very well choreographed and staged. There's one great example of a scene where Jim Carrey is in his own memory that's being erased, and he walks into the doctor's office, looks at the doctor, and then the camera pans over to Jim Carrey speaking with the doctor, pans back to the doctor, and then back to Jim Carrey, who has walked into the office to watch it. And there's no cut in that shot. Jim Carrey, once the camera was off him, took off his costume, sat down for the shot on the other end, and then went back behind the camera to be back at point A for the scene. And it's just little things like that throughout the film that add up and make a pretty significant difference in the way it's portrayed and the way it's experienced by the viewer, because you're never taken out of the moment. But the thing that really puts this film over the top is the cast and their performances. This is probably my favorite Jim Carrey movie and performance. I mean, he's done a lot of great stuff throughout his career, and a lot of it leading up to this film. As he moved through his career and filmography, he started to delve into drama, specifically starting with The Truman Show in 1998, which is another exceptional performance and film. Then he moved into Man on the Moon, and then The Majestic, which is a really underrated gem. But they weren't as commercially successful as his comedies, and he didn't really get the recognition that he was hoping for from doing those kinds of films. You know, and so I think all of that failure among those successes kind of beat him down a little bit which enabled him to give such an excellent performance in this film. But depending upon your tastes, you may or may not agree, but I'd be curious to find out in the comments on this video. And it's really kind of funny because Jim Carrey wasn't even the first choice for this film. Nicolas Cage was the original choice, and thankfully there was a conflict in his schedule that allowed Jim Carrey to take this part because, as I just said, he is fantastic. And playing against Kate Winslet, who is arguably one of the greatest actresses of her generation, it really is just kind of a match made in cinematic heaven. Because again, she's not playing the typical Kate Winslet character either. They're almost cast against type, you know? And Michel Gondry, he made that decision and he played into it when he was directing them. He would tell Kate Winslet, this is a comedy, go big, go as big as you want. And so her character is very eccentric, a little quirky, and just very outgoing. But he would tell Jim Carrey, this is a drama, this isn't a comedy, you can't be that silly, you have to be serious, this is a serious movie. And so Jim Carrey would kind of reel in his performance and kind of close in and just focus on some of his own personal turmoil and experiences and losses. And it really comes through in the film. And so when they are on screen together, it really is a very interesting chemistry because you're not only wondering like, well, yeah, these characters, they make sense together, but in a weird way, they almost don't. But you can see the attraction of each other. It's that old opposites attract idea playing out in this film. And Kirsten Dunst, she has a very interesting, I guess, subplot that underlines this film. You know, she's introduced almost as like a secondary background character, but throughout the course of the film, she develops into almost a turning point for the entire story. So it's really nice to see how just the whole cast works together as an ensemble. You know, Mark Ruffalo, it wasn't early in his career, but it was early in the breakout portion of his career in the early 2000s because he had been working for about 10 years before this film came out. And Elijah Wood, he just plays the wormiest little runt you could ever hope to never meet. And this was right after Lord of the Rings, you know, so to go from Frodo saving Middle-earth to Patrick, the conniving stain in Joel's world. It's really a lot of fun. And I think my favorite part of this film is really when Joel starts to have second thoughts about the road he's taken, and he tries to hide the memories of Clementine deeper in his mind. And so then it kind of becomes a little bit of conflict, a little bit of chase, a little bit of tension, and it takes the story in even more interesting directions. My second favorite part of this movie is Kate Winslet, because I just love and adore her. I really think she's fantastic as an actress, and this film specifically just kind of opens up a whole new door for her, because prior to this, she was really kind of the prim and proper girl, or the historically pigeonholed girl in, you know, films like Sense and Sensibility or Quills or even Titanic. You know, she's playing that kind of reserved character. And so Clementine in Eternal Sunshine really just allowed her to kind of open up her range cinematically, and ultimately it paid off because she was nominated for Best Actress in this role. I think this film is really for people who have been in a long-term or short-term relationship. I wouldn't say this film is for the faint of heart, but maybe for the hopeful of heart, because it does have a lot of emotional baggage. Like, these characters just dump it all on you, the viewer. But I think that's one of the great things about this particular film and what allows it to resonate with audiences, because it leans so hard into the fantasy of our reality. So that's it for Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I really hope you like this recommendation, and please don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future selections. If you do watch Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, leave us a comment and let us know what you think of the film. We will be discussing it at length on the next Visually Hidden Selects podcast, so be sure to tune into that. And until next time, see ya!